This is from A Course in Love. This is day number 2. I have a beautiful view of the sun filtering through the trees outside. It's a nice summer day for us. It's June 13th. And this morning when I started reading this book, I opened it and I flicked over to the notes from the first days that we started reading it. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, see it.
There we go. We started reading this on January 4th, or at least that's when I first made that first note. So we've been doing this more than a year, a half a year to get to this point, for it to make sense to us at this level, and for us to be excited to read it and can't wait to read it. But I was just reminded this morning how far we've come and the time we've invested. I think it's worth it. Anyway.
Excellent investment of time.
Day 2, accept yourself. Acceptance of yourself. You think they would have written yourself as one word if he didn't want to capitalize it?
Yeah.
Acceptance of yourself is acceptance of me. Acceptance of yourself is acceptance of your inheritance. Now is the time to come into full acceptance of the human self, as well as the self of unity. It is the time for the final merging of the two into one self, the elevated self of form. You have let go the ego, reviewed your life, and unlearned previous patterns, and now see the difference between the image you hold of yourself and your present self. But still, in unguarded moments, in moments in which you would desire peace, memories of your life continue to play within your mind, often still bringing you sadness and regrets. Do you ever feel that, Dad?
I don't feel regrets, but I don't feel it mainly because I've had so many experiences that I realize the good and the bad are all part of what is or was, and I did the best I could at any one moment. And if I could have done better, I would have. And that's the reason we're studying this now, because we're going to be able to do better and more good than we could have done otherwise. And also one of the promises is that this is saving a lot of time by going this route. We're getting to a point where we can be of more use to ourselves and other people.
Yeah.
So I really don't. I mean, that is inherent in me. I don't regret it. I don't regret whatever it's been.
It's a waste of time to regret it anyway. That's the end of the logic tree when it comes to regrets for me.
What was it? I didn't.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's it. I've had a few, but why entertain them? Okay. All of these moments you review have brought you here. Ta-da!
We often do that, don't we?
That happens all the time when we read this book. As if I pause for a moment and we talk about something, it seems to be confirmed or or the polar opposite right away.
You're like Jesus is quickly re-editing it just for us,
Just
right?
for me. 10 years after it's written. Yes, exactly. All these moments you review have brought you here, but I realize you have not as yet developed the capacity to accept this fully.
We're getting there.
Right? For most of you, much of what you have considered your mistakes and poor choices have been reconciled. You see the pattern of life as clearly now as if a masterful biography had been written of it. This is the clarity that has brought a new haunting to some of you. Your life is being seen as being seen. Your life is being seen more as a whole now. The parts are fitting together. You can see how you have moved from seeming purposelessness to purpose. And I think that's what you were trying to say in a different way.
Yeah, it's a jigsaw puzzle coming together.
You're like an inventor who wasted many years, much money, and endured many hardships over many projects that did not come to fruition, and now has succeeded in inventing just what was always envisioned. This is the moment of fulfillment and desire coming together, the time in which to realize it was all worth it. Whew. How could you not want to get a little more of what's coming next? This is the time of revelation of meaning. You who have so long striven to give meaning to the purposeless, here see meaning revealed. And yet you cannot still some of your regrets. And yet you cannot still some of your regrets. The feeling is not as strong as it once was, and you are very unlikely to still experience guilt or shame, but the hurts you have done others may weigh heavily on you now. Ooh. It's as if at this mountain peak you've discovered a lightness of being, and yet within it is this stone of regret. Ooh, poetic. The stone of regret. You continue to have a nagging feeling that this stone of regret will always keep you anchored to the little s self you once were. The little self. Oh, no matter how high you ascend, it will continue to drag you back. This is the feeling that will prevent you from receiving the secret of succession. It's like the force of gravity, a feeling you'll not be able to remain at this height long enough to benefit from what will be shared here. Part of this feeling arises from erroneous ideas that remain regarding your unworthiness. Part of this feeling arises from your erroneous idea that you can fail, even here. These are the temptations that confront those who have dared to ascend the mountain. It's not the height you've attained that causes you fear of falling. It's the depths to which you feel you once descended that calls forth your fear here. These are mainly, in truth, judgments. Judgments that arise from your conscience. From that part of you that has compared your actions to the laws of man and God and found yourself guilty. Oh,
I don't want no stinking judgments no more.
he nails us to the cross here, doesn't he? Let
If
me
we let
ask
them,
you now. What's that?
if we let them, so to speak, do we have them? And
We don't.
let's get rid of these stones.
All right. Let me ask you.
Everybody must get stoned. You know, that's what Bob Dylan
That's what
said.
Dylan said, sure. Uh, let me ask you now. Are these feelings that are attached to your belief that you have harmed others, not feelings of sorrow? Are you not sorry for these actions?
Sure,
Have you not expressed your wish that you had acted differently?
sure.
Can you see a way to change the past and make up for what occurred in the past? want to.
Yep.
Now is the time for acceptance, even of these actions that you would rather not accept. They happened. They were what they were. I ask you not to forget. If your home had been destroyed by a tornado or a flood rather than adultery and divorce, would you not see the benefit of accepting what had occurred and moving on? You might encounter this by saying that if you had been the adulterer, the cause of the divorce, this was different than a tornado or a flood. Yes, this was different, but this difference does not place these actions beyond the idea of acceptance. Conversely, were you the innocent victim of an adulterous mate, a mate whose actions led to divorce and destruction of your home? Can you not accept that this is something that happened? We leave aside, for the moment, any considerations of other outcomes of such actions, whether they are negative or positive in your judgment. We look for a simple acceptance of the facts of your life.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could give thousands of examples here.
Let's
I
not.
don't need any more. I don't know about you. I'm good.
Which I have a few hundred or so.
But the point is that we're not looking for degrees of wrong actions or wrongdoing. Everybody has moments they wish they could reenact, decisions they wish they could change. These actions are unchangeable. This is why simple acceptance is needed. We speak not of forgiveness or even at one-ment. We speak not of forgiveness or even atonement here, for these have been thoroughly discussed earlier. You've all been through the time of tenderness, the time that preceded your giving and receiving of forgiveness, your request for and granting of atonement, your reviewing and unlearning of the perceived lessons of your life. But just as you are called here to accept me despite possible misgivings, such as religious beliefs, you are called to accept yourself. This unconditional acceptance is necessary. I'll give you one final example in order to make our discussion as clear as possible. This is an example from my own life, an example the idea of which still plagues many of you. This example is that of the crucifixion. For many of you, the crucifixion is among the reasons you hesitate to fully accept me. It's hard for you to believe that my suffering was symbolic of the end of yours when so much suffering has continued. I will add here the example of my resurrection. It's hard for you to believe that my resurrection heralded eternal life when death has been a constant companion of all of those who have lived since my time. It's difficult for you to believe that by following me, you will not walk in my footsteps. Perhaps you will be granted eternal life, but not until you have suffered as I have suffered. This idea would hardly be a joyful idea with which to begin our work together.
Hey, I don't think so either. Come on, boys, let's all get nailed up to the cross.
I'd rather get stoned than nailed. I guess sometimes I'd rather get nailed than stoned. I don't know.
Yeah,
They
let's
both
not even.
sound bad at first glance, but really good at second glance. All right. As was said within this course, my life is the example life. God, that's good. That's worthy of diffusing the tension that has arisen within the first 17 paragraphs of this reading. As was said within this course, my life is the example life. The way in which I have talked of it recently may have led some of you to consider it as a symbolic life rather than an actual life. All of our lives here are symbolic rather than actual, just as the creation story is symbolic rather than actual. This does not mean that my life did not happen, that it did not occur in time and space, just as yours is occurring now in time and space. What this means is that what occurs in time and space is symbolic, that it is representative of something more. So let us consider my life again, just briefly, and let us consider the something more it may represent. My life consisted of the same major elements as yours: birth through childhood, maturity, and with that maturity, action in the world, suffering, death, and resurrection. You have accounts of my actions that begin with the appearance of my form in the world, but that mainly occur during my time of maturity. These accounts do not stress the time of my childhood, as it is a time commonly held to be one of innocence. The accounts of my maturity generally begin with the recognition of who I am. This is symbolic of the idea put forth here, that until you are aware of who you are, your life has not literally or symbolically begun.
Wow. Yeah, I was wondering what color you were going to do that one.
It's a promise to me.
This is huge.
To me, it was in awareness of who I am that my life took on meaning. It could be argued that this awareness existed at my birth, and this too would be accurate, since all births are meant to be eagerly looked forward to as beginnings of I am. Since most births are seen in this way, and most mature lives are not, we concentrate here on mature lives.
That's good.
My mature life thus began with recognition of who I am, as does yours, and this time was followed by my example life, a life that began with the 40 days and 40 nights spent upon the mountain and continued with my joining with my brothers and sisters in the bringing of light to darkness, power to the powerless, health to the sick, life to the dead. My life touches all those willing
What?
to be touched. Sorry?
My life touched all those willing to be touched.
Thank you. My life touched all those willing to be touched, changed all those willing to be changed, but great unwillingness remained and remains. Willingness was not yet upon humankind. The choice was made collectively to remain in illusion. The choice for continued suffering was made, and so I responded to that choice. An example of response was needed. The example was that of a symbolic gesture. It too was a choice to take all that suffering upon myself and kill it. To say, here is what we will do with suffering. We will take it away once and for all. We will crucify it on the cross of time and space. Bury it so that it need be no more. And demonstrate that new life follows the choice to end suffering.
Wow. That's it's not even a word to describe how powerful this explanation is.
Okay, 224. I did not suffer, for I knew who I was and chose no suffering. This is what's meant by the idea that has been repeated as I died for your sins. My death was meant to demonstrate that the end of suffering had come, and with it, eternal life. Here then is where you need to make the choice that those in my time could not make, the choice to end suffering. This is the choice I made for all. This is a choice you make for all as well. Willingness is now upon humankind. What my life demonstrated but needs to be demonstrated anew. But this will not happen if you cling to suffering. If you do not accept yourself, all of yourself, you cling to suffering. This is why you first needed to accept me. To accept me is to accept the end of suffering. To accept the end of suffering is to accept your true self. Wow, what a reading. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. I kind of get flabbergasted, and I wouldn't know how to explain it to somebody. But the key thing about, and why I was thinking making this video would be different than anybody else who just comes through and reads the pages, would be the relationship that we're two people going through this reading together. And I don't even know how to stop and talk about it half the time. It's
And
an
it's like,
overwhelming reading.
it is. And I think the idea of having two people is that you can at least express that befuddlement or bewilderment or ecstatic feeling of, wow, this is so amazing. It's good to be able to at least say that to someone else and have them say, yeah, sure, it really is. This is an amazing thing. Jesus is telling us like this whole story. And he's doing it so that we can end our suffering on this earth right now, in our lives as they are right now, and forget about all of the past because it's all done, and
Yep.
we can move into something really new. So,
Yep.
and at the beginning, even what the 40 days means, when he describes that it all
He
started,
started with his 40 days.
and knowing who he was.
And now he walks with us through a 40 days for us.
Yeah, he's
You know, if
even
the
even there.
365 from ACIM wasn't enough, here's
Right.
40 days for you.
Now, if someone happened to hear this, if you're listening right now to this recording, you understand that Jesus channeled all of this through a woman,
Marion. Yeah.
Marion and Perone, and she is called the first receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And you and we are other receivers of this wisdom and this knowledge about not only Jesus but about ourselves. Um,
It
it's
talks about that at the very beginning of the book.
mhm.
And it also talks about us being a receiver as well. So
Yep.
this is literally the fourth page of the book. Sorry, it's just pointing out what you're saying, where it
Yeah,
exists.
no, yeah, and it's we hope that you will join us. Let us know if this is a way that you would like to be the next person to join with us, and we can read it together. We hope you do.
So, I just wanted to go through this reading again. There was a part in here where I got into an automatic reading, and I don't even want to reread it. But I was on an automatic because of some painful parts of my life. But
Sure.
this reading, boy, it hit me in all kinds of ways that none of any of this has really hit me before. The target was right here,
No,
and I wonder if everybody gets that to some degree. Everybody has been through their own
absolutely.
crucifixion, as bad as it gets for somebody to think this was the worst part of my life. Everybody has that. Bringing that to bear and knowing that you don't ever want to have it happen to you again or have it happen to anybody that you care about.
Well, yeah, and also there's different kinds of people. We see this in politics today, but some people are the ones who get nailed, and some people are the ones who do the nailing. And this
Yeah.
is for both of us. This is for all of us to get past all of that and to know that
If you're
it doesn't
tired of
have to
getting
be that,
nailed,
huh?
if you're tired of getting nailed,
Yeah, right.
or if you're tired of doing the nailing, this is a chance to give that up.
Or the kind of person that you get nailed and you say, "Oh yeah, well I'm going to nail you too," and it's just it's always
I'm ready
of
for
the
some
repeating,
peace.
and now it's the time to accept who Jesus was and what he just explained even better, what he represents, what he means to our future, and also to accept our higher self, which we're now in a better position to be able to
Mm-hmm.
really do something positive in this world and to make it a better world.
Mm-hmm. Here, here.
You wanted to pick up some of these pieces you highlighted.
I don't know. These were the things that spoke to me while I was going through it, and it's a hard thing to do to read out loud. It's a hard thing to do to read out loud and try and decide what's important enough to highlight. It's a really hard thing to highlight while I read sometimes. But I also recognize this as probably my primary reading of this. At least it's my first time through. So, well, as I read most of these, it's my first time through. This morning, early this morning, I started reading day 3 because that's when I opened the book. That's what it was on, and um, that is an exciting one. Tomorrow, I'm excited to get to it, but it's a pretty disturbing one too, actually, and it's long, like we found out yesterday. This one was a good manageable size.
Well, I still have some time and I wouldn't even mind just jumping into day 3 for a few
Yeah.
pages.
Well,
Let's
it is long.
let's hit a few because it might be hard
Well,
to
let me
do
go
day.
through these real quick here. So, this
Okay.
unguarded moments, moments which you desire peace, memory in your life, continue to play with your mind. Yeah, yeah, they do. That's a truth for me. That one hit me because it's just so true. I have these, a fleeting memory of seeing something of one of my children, and it brings sadness and regrets, and they flood. Oh, drowned me. They drowned me, yet with a deep breath, I'm able to release them and release them with love. And I get to see him this afternoon. So, but boy, I'm tired of it bringing sadness and regret rather than happiness.
Yep.
And I'm sure everybody desires the time they can realize that it's all worth it, whatever they went through.
Yep. Everybody gets to do that.
I may not be able to go through all of these. Oh, God. Yeah, that whole middle part in there, I can't even take that part apart. But when we got over here to this, especially when he said kill it, wow, I can't even talk about that. I'm not going to edit this stuff out either.
Well, the good thing is that actually this is the one chapter we probably shouldn't go back through because it simply reminds us of all the suffering and we can let it go
Hearts
now.
to leave this behind, yeah.
Yeah.
As it
Because
says
actually,
right here, this will not happen if you cling to the suffering. It's the willingness, it's the time to accept it so that we can end it.
yeah, like actually, this is a short chapter. It's easy to do if we just accept. And that's the goal.
Yeah. You don't have to dwell to accept. You accept to accept.
That's it. I'm ready. I'm ready to accept me. I'm ready to accept you. Certainly ready to accept Jesus.
Here, here.
I'm also ready to accept abundance, man.
All right.
I'm ready for day 3.
And the first sentence is why it's a stumbling block because right out of the gate, it's kind of like, what are you talking about? What
You're not talking about
anger?
me, are
Why are
you?
we talking about anger all of a sudden? All right. So here it goes. We'll dive in for a little bit, and this will probably either make tomorrow better or
Well,
less clear in terms of being able to follow it from the book.
sometimes jumping in a little bit ahead rather than diving in, it's more like sticking your toe in, but you're not ready to get in the pool yet.
That's how
But
you like to get in the pool. I like to dive in.
I know you do, but not me. I do one toe at a time.
Do you rip band-aids off, or do you just kind of slowly and painfully feel each tiny piece that you peel when you're peeling a band-aid off?
Oh yeah, it's just so wonderful. Not, but
So,
anyway.
so you rip band-aids off, right?
Oh, the band-aids. No, I've learned to rip them off. That's a good point.
You you learned how to dive into a deep pool when you were a teenager. I don't know
That's
why you regressed to the painful way of getting in slowly.
we do that.
You know what? My children help me with this. What
Yeah.
they do is push me in the pool.
All right, Dad, you're going in.
I'll, I'll show you that in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Accept abundance, my friend.
All right. I'm
Accept
ready.
your anger, for it's the next step in the continuum upon which we travel. When a person is dying, just as when a person is undergoing this final surrender, there are stages through which one moves. The first is denial. The second is anger. We've already spoken of denial, albeit in a new way. Now we will speak of anger in both an old and a new way. Let me suggest to you what this is truly all about. If you've paid attention to this point, hopefully you can see the sincerity.
Hmm.
Can't read the next sentence.
Let me suggest to you what it is truly all about. It is about the way you have learned and your lack of understanding of what it did to you. That really got you, didn't it, Lee?
Yep. What was it that was taught to you in the time of learning? It was the mind. What was it that was taught to in the time of learning? It was the mind, my own little ego pea brain, our own little ego pea brain. Thus, your mind has been trained for learning, and you're most willing to have new insight, new information, and even new discoveries enter through your mind, because this is known to you and this is what you're familiar with. In the area of mind, were you most willing to accept teachers, leaders, guides, authorities, for only through them did you learn? You're beginning to see now that this learning was not a choice, but only the way you knew life to be. While the freedom of childhood learning might be seen as the way learning was meant to be, the time of this pure learning has grown shorter and shorter, while the time of enforced learning has grown more entrenched. In the area of the body came another form of learning, about which you saw yourself as having little choice. When the body has something to teach you, what choice did you have but to listen? So the mind and body were both conditioned to have learning thrust upon them. You long ago quit resisting most of this learning and accepted it as the way things are. This kind of acceptance is what we are reversing with a new acceptance. With your heart, you grew less accepting of these outside attempts at influence. You, who as both individuals and as a species have been conditioned by thousands of years of learning through the mind, learning in often painful ways, said no to learning through the heart. Many of you will admit to growing a bit angry with the beginning of this course and its challenge to your ideas regarding love. Most of you approached learning through the heart with even more openness than you did new ideas about love, not realizing that they were one and the same. So our first point of discussion in the realm of anger is that no matter where anger seems to arise, anger is a product of the condition of learning. It always was. But now this is being revealed to you, not just through my words, but by your experience of anger in new ways. You may have not felt a great deal of this anger yet, but it is there, and here we will discuss its function. There is one area that is greeted with even more anger and more resistance in regard to learning of all kinds. In other words, both old learning as well as new, than love. There's one area that is greeted with even more anger and resistance in regard to learning of all kinds than love. This is the area you call money, and I call abundance. Feel your body's reaction to this statement. Some of you will feel excitement at the idea of this issue finally being discussed. Talking to you.
Yeah.
But be aware of your feelings as we proceed, for I tell you truly, here is where your greatest anger and your greatest lack of belief and acceptance lies.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You may believe a spiritual context for your life can change your life, make you feel more peaceful, give you a comfort of a non-physical nature. These ideas, whether you realize it or not, are all associated with mind. It's through your mind that these new ideas will change your actions and your life. Your mind that, through increased stillness, will give you more peace. Your mind that will accept comfort of a certain type, even extending to a new comfortableness of being. You believe having a spiritual context for your life can, in other words, change your inner life, but are more skeptical in regards to its ability to affect your outer life.
Hey,
And
Lee.
nowhere are you more skeptical than in regard to money or abundance. The area of money or abundance is where learning fooled you and failed you the most.
So earlier, when you were pointing to me, anybody watching this recording might have thought you were pointing to them, and in a way you were,
I was.
but we're all pointing at each other because every one of us, it doesn't matter.
When I
We're
point
all,
at this, I'm pointing at me and you, whoever you are.
yeah, we're all in this together,
We
guys,
are all in this together.
gals.
Whoever you happen to be, we're still one.
Oprah comes to mind at the moment. It's she's a pretty
Oprah,
wonderful
if you're
person.
watching, we love you.
Huh?
We love you.
Yes, that's for sure because we're all doing this together.
You may believe that having a spiritual context for your life will assist you in feeling more loved and possibly even assist you in finding someone to love. You may believe that this spirituality can help mend a feeling of brokenheartedness, can cause you to extend forgiveness to those who hurt you, to make amends to those you hurt, or simply quit feeling guilty or bitter or shamed or rejected because of them. But do you not believe that the spiritual context is capable of bringing you the lack of what you associate most strongly with money?
The lack of want.
The lack of what? Want. Yes, want, not what. But you do not believe that the spiritual context is capable of bringing you the lack of want you associate most strongly with money. I want the lack of want. Just as possessing the idea that having a spiritual context for your life will assist you in living abundantly will cause you to think, I doubt it, or I'll believe it when I see it. You may think spirituality can assist you in living a more simple life, and thus a life of limits of which you are more accepting. But given time to consider such an idea, you're likely to become more and more agitated and go back and forth between the general and the specific, thinking of both your own lack in life and those who lack is more pronounced, and those whose lack is more pronounced than your own. Fairness seems non-existent in terms of who has and who has not, and the world seems made up of haves and have-nots, and to function in the insane way that it does, largely due to this discrepancy.
It's
Boy,
more true today than ever.
there's a
More
lot in this reading, and I literally, when I was reading this, I was thinking to myself, thank God I'm reading this ahead of time, and I can take 30 minutes to read this paragraph, because it is such a part of what's been in the background of the last 6 months of reading this book.
yeah.
You know, the reality that we see, the what he refers to as the illusionary illusory world, the illusion, the world of illusion that is the world that we see with our eyes. Oh, that phrase alone wouldn't make sense to somebody who was a neophyte to this idea. But in the idea of non-duality, we have to deny what we see in front of us in order to accept what our hearts tell us is the truth.
Well said. Well said.
It's so hard. It's so hard to act in the ways that seem contrary, but you're told to follow. What are you supposed to do? How do you spread love in a world that's full of anger and jealousy and rage and doesn't stop to listen? And
You look for the truth and you speak the truth as best you can.
yeah,
It's a neutral place when you speak the truth.
yeah. We're coming up to the end of our hour, and I think I want to finish up on the hour.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if I want to tape the whole hour. I think we can probably tape when we want to start, but I think I'm ready to kind of wrap it up for today.
Let's do this. Let's wrap it up knowing that um, we're going to have more and more good things revealed to us that are going to help us have a better life, a more balanced life, a more fruitful life. And I'm all ready for a more abundant life. Are you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we only have a scant 20 pages left in this chapter, so it might just start from here tomorrow.
That's
Um,
okay. Whoever's listening can just move on from this point.
yeah. All right. So here's wishing health, wealth, and abundance and all the stuff that really matters to everybody out there, all of us, all the I ams. I love you, Pop.
Love you, Lee. See you tomorrow.